Hey friends, it's me, Tuomo Vahkonen here, coming to you live today here from Tahiti, from my sanctuary, to another beautiful, fantastic, and interesting episode for our lifestyle and performance show on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And today my guest is Dr. Erica Harris, who is coming for us from Vancouver. How are you doing, my friend? What's happening in your world today?
So well, thank you. The sun is actually shining here in Vancouver, and we are ever so lucky because we do live in what is known as a rainforest. So when the sun is out, we are all so happy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. All right, so without further introductions, um, let's just jump straight into it. I like to kind of go straight into the kind of meat and potatoes, but give us a little bit of an idea of who you are, where did you come from, and how did you end up where you are right now. You have an extremely powerful story, and in relation as today's conversation, I really wanted to talk about a couple of things about this thing called life force and personal energy, and obviously resilience, because your story and your ideas and where you came from, I think is extremely important for people to understand what these things are and how we can use this thing called life force and energy and the personal resiliency to better our situations and life. So I know there's a lot there, but give us like a little quick introduction of your story, and then some of the highlights and some of the sort of pitfalls and struggles, if you will, because I think there's people a lot to learn from your story. So
Sure. I'm just
go ahead.
honored to be here with you and to share my story of personal transformation, right? And all that I've gone through. And having been this poster child for health and wellness in what I now refer to as my previous life, having served as a very successful sports chiropractor and kinesiologist, owning a thriving multidisciplinary health center, and really serving to inspire my community to truly live its best health status, speaking, at the University of British Columbia and all throughout my community, really serving as that inspirational role model for others to live their healthiest lives. And then at the young age of 35, still nursing my youngest son, I found to be myself diagnosed with what proved to be a very aggressive version of leukemia. I hadn't even complained to him of feeling sick or unwell. And after a routine lab, gosh, the world that I had come to know as mine was just crumbled all around me and never to return. And all in the matter of seconds when I had this really aggressive diagnosis. And
Mhm.
I was admitted to hospital right away. I did not respond to even salvage chemotherapy, despite my most valiant of valiant efforts. I was awarded a 2-month terminal cancer prognosis from our hospital's largest province, from our province's largest hospital, sorry. And I was denied all further medical care moving forward, aside from palliative care. I even sought a second opinion in the United States, and they also gave me the exact same opinion. I fought to go home rather than going to that palliative floor. And in this time, I just experienced the most profound awakenings and transformations. And I truly healed myself through various measures of natural healthcare measures, and miraculously attained a miraculous remission where I was then able to receive a life-saving bone marrow transplant, which serves as, the quote unquote cure to prevent against relapse from such an aggressive cancer. And my brother proved not to be a match for this much needed transplant. This worldwide search had been hailed on my behalf to find a perfect donor. And incredibly, this complete stranger rose to help from halfway around the world in my time of need, all the way from Germany, this young mountaineering adventurer. And so my blood type even changed from O negative to A positive. I endured a few hiccups with acute rejection from this transplant. In my tummy, I was readmitted. I had a few episodes of septic pneumonia and was readmitted with that. But overall, I grew strong, and I was back to hiking all of those mountains and soaring down them all again on my skis. But this burst in great health was short-lived, and I lost my breath on these hikes, and I was not able to speak in the same ways as I had always done before. I couldn't catch my breath. And it was soon realized that I was enduring rejection from my new hardy bone marrow, decided it didn't recognize my own lungs, and embarked on this process of attack where my new hardy immune system attacked my own lungs, basically like my lungs were a cold or a flu. Through this process of bronchiolitis obliterans, did a fabulous job, obliterated my lungs. I fell to 80 pounds. I was super sick on full-time oxygen. I lost my vision in this time. Gosh, staying the course in this time was brutally, brutally hard. And I was told my only chance of survival would be a double lung transplant. For something great to happen to me, something terrible had to happen to someone else. And gosh, how does one come to grapple with that? And I lost my vision in this time. As I was saying, I couldn't drive, I couldn't read, I couldn't see a television to take my mind off of it. If I had walked across my kitchen floor, I felt as though I would lose capacity of all bodily functions. Staying the course every day was so brutally hard. I felt so heavy, so weighed down. And only with thanks to the kindness of the family of another amidst their hardest of hardest times was I gifted the gift of new lungs and the gift of breath, a gift we all so readily take for granted. And with that new gift, I grew strong, but with that new gift came a virus for which I had never been exposed to before. And given my complicated health history, I no longer produce my own immunoglobulins to fight new bugs. And I faced another year in the hospital. I grew resistant to all forms of treatment available for this darn bug, according to testing at our National Disease Center in Winnipeg. And I was called the Hail Mary of our province's largest hospital. Again, facing, dire circumstances. And miraculously, I had another miracle in the spring of 2017 where I just started to be able to fight this bug on my own. And only 6 weeks after then finally growing well and finally being home on the home front, I then faced divorce and legal battles and life, adjusted to life as a single mom early on in my recovery. And I am here to propel a message of hope and inspiration, and to help others stay the course and hold on to that powerful force of hope.
Wow. That's a, I'm not sure exactly sure what the word would be to describe the story, because it's such a unique, extremely powerful, resilient story. Thank you for sharing that, first of all.
Thank you.
Something that I wanted to sort of touch up upon, because there was peaks and valleys. There was like you had these uphills, like, oh, things are going good, things are looking bright. You're seeing the quote unquote cliche, the light in the end of the tunnel, and then all of a sudden the door gets just completely slammed shut, and then you back down again. How were you navigating those peaks and valleys, and what was some of the more helpful ideas or tools or practices that you had during those peaks and valleys?
You're right, Tuomo. Like, this whole journey, it was filled with this emotional roller coaster, right? Of such success. Like, I'm recovering from this 2-month terminal cancer prognosis, right? And then falling so hard again with my lungs and losing my ability to breathe. It was so brutally hard because all of those tools that had worked to overcome this 2-month terminal prognosis, I seemed so ineffective in taking back that control in this process that was happening deep within. From, I called this to my kids, these two friends in the playground that just didn't get along, right? This new immune system from Germany and my own body. These two friends just weren't getting along, and none of the tools that I used to create such success before brought further success at this point. And it was so hard staying the course. But I've always come to find that every time we fall, if we're able to find the stillness and the quiet in our heart, we can always hear the lessons, right? That adversity comes to bring to us. And there are always more lessons to be learned. And despite all the immeasurable and infinite hardships that I've endured on this path, obviously losing my once very happy marriage, right, is such a loss. But despite all of the immeasurable hardships, the blessings and the silver linings and these lessons, these awakenings that I talk about, that in my previous life, I was so go, right? I never found that calm or that stillness to hear the screams in my body or to hear these lessons, right? And I live such an incredibly richer life because of all that I've navigated. And I truly feel blessed. I truly feel as though I have been chosen to go through this crazy tumultuous tidal wave, to come out of it and serve in the capacity that I now do with these awakenings, and live each day with such gratitude. And yeah, really focusing on those lessons that do come in tow with adversity, with every single time we fall, and always keeping in mind, the harder we fall, the higher we bounce on the rebound, right? Keeping that vision of success and what roots us, and what we're really going for in that North Star at the end of the road. And so for me, I had various tools that helped me stay focused on that North Star. And every time I felt I lacked strength, because people are always praising me for my positive mindset, right? And all that I've gone through. But to be honest, like, we really have to allow ourselves the space to be real, really real about those negative emotions that come in tow, and really process them and experience them, let them out, and then use shifts through music, nature, comedy, whatever we're going through, to shift to a more positive outlook. But that can only really authentically, genuinely happen once we've allowed ourselves the space to be really real. And that was a really big awakening. I really felt at first on my path with this dire cancer prognosis, with how aggressive it was. If I'm only positive, right? If I'm only positive, I'm going to be fine. And I remember reading this book from Lance Armstrong that he was speaking with, this really notorious oncologist. And he's like, gosh, my positive mindset's not helping. And this oncologist said back to him, I've seen the most positive of positive people perish. And I was mad at this, like really mad, thinking this is all I needed to do. But I've come a long way in really learning that there's this positive mindset, there's this realistic optimism. And the realistic optimism really puts accountability on us to be proactive, to make and believe in our own ability to affect change in that optimistic outcome that we're all shooting for, right? Like when I was in the hospital, it's not just going to naturally happen unless I'm taking that accountability in my own health and in my own wellness, excuse me, to rise and affect the changes that really need to happen. Visualizations, personal power statement. These were all very, very powerful tools on my journey to stay the course through all of these episodes of constant rise and fall.
Okay, so there was a couple of things that I wanna touch up on. Thank you for that share. That was powerful. Realistic optimism. That's something that it's really healthy to hear that. I've been toggling back and forth with the whole idea, because again, like you're looking at the field that we're both on, this personal development field, and sort of the empowerment, and there's a lot of talk about this positive psychology, but there's something that doesn't really sit with me, really well, 100% with it. But when you bring that realism or realistic part into it, more sort of the feet on the ground and sort of like really physical aspect to it, I think that's when we start sort of understanding it more holistically, if you will. Like, be realistically optimistic is a beautiful way of putting it. And the other,
I'll give you a story. I'll give you a story on that, because this was a profound awakening for me, right? People were coming into my hospital room. I had 60 guests each and every day. I was never left alone. I was inviting people to come watch me on my exercise bike, right? And I firmly believed I just need to be upbeat and positive. And, and then all of a sudden we had this nanny that we had to hire who came in to watch my children. And all of a sudden I was struck by her presence, and I didn't even know her. And she was carrying the most precious cargo. And I wanted to be the one going home with my babies that night, right? And I wanted to be the one putting them to bed and being their loudest cheerleader at soccer, right? And gosh, I watched her leave with my babies that day from the hospital. This was early on in my journey, just before I heard the words of my 2-month terminal cancer prognosis back in 2012. And I watched her leave, and this was by far the most physical pain I've ever experienced on this journey. I was all alone in my hospital room at this time, and I watched her leave with my babies. And again, I wanted to be that one, right? My heart literally drove away with my car that I watched her load into my van. And I turned around from that window and I slunk down towards the floor, and I just wept, and I wept, and I wept, and I wept. And this was the first time that I really had allowed myself that space to be real, right? But I had to grieve the loss of not being able to attend my oldest, his 5th birthday party that I had planned for months, for abruptly being ripped by all of our summer travel plans, and so much that cancer had come to steal, right? That I was kind of trying to mask and not allow myself that space to feel those emotions or be real about it. I was like, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. This is just a blip on the path, right? But when we conceal those emotions, we don't affect the according behavioral response that those emotions are supposed to evoke, right? And so if I had allowed myself this space to feel the sadness from it, I also would have allowed myself this space to really reflect and grow, which I didn't really do until I felt this sorrow, right? When I'm told I have got 2 months to live, and who's going to be that mom by my kid's side? Gosh, like, and I didn't allow myself the space to feel the fear before that, because I thought that that would lead to not being successful, right? But when we don't feel the fear, we don't affect that, flight or fight behavioral response, right? And so I became very compliant in those early months of just, following what my doctor said, not taking any other accountability. I was kind of stuck in the hospital, right? But as soon as I had this 2-month terminal cancer prognosis, taking that accountability, gosh, I went through all those steps, and I had to recognize the very real power that this fire breathing dragon of cancer had brought with it. Not just having this, oh, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to be fine, unrealistic, optimistic outlook, right? The realistic part comes in by doing those heartfelt letters to my children. If I'm not here, right, to be able to celebrate future birthdays, what is that message that I want to do? And then going through those emotions then powers us forward, right? Fuels the fight, going through those negative emotions. But when we mask those emotions, we don't evoke that behavioral response that needs to come in tow. So this first step of being real, it is a profound awakening that there's almost this fierce societal pressure within society that we always have to be 100% positive, no matter what the circumstances are. And it puts a lot of pressure on us. We need to have the courage and the bravery to create that safe space around us and that community that allows us to support those real emotions and to express them, because only then can you move on with your more authentic, genuine outlook to create that success.
I love it. And so I think you mentioned this already, but let me just hear it again, because it's just such a powerful message. And how I'm understanding this, like exactly what you just mentioned about the negative emotions, that we definitely do not want to mask those. Yet, especially when you've been given a, let's say, 2 months to live, in your case, you have a very tangible timeline. Okay, this is what it looks like, instead of like, I have a cancer. You're very much in the unknown. But soon as somebody tells you a X amount, you get given a time zone or timeline, all of a sudden the sense of urgency goes through the roof. And when you couple that urgency with those negative emotions, you pretty much have two ways to go about it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to paraphrase that in my own words here. You either cripple and quote unquote let go, or either you do what you did, is that you use the power of those negative emotions to fuel the positivity, if you will, or fuel at least the forward journey and the forward momentum, and give you even more meaning for those actions that you
100%. It fueled my fight of fights, right? Going through this process and really realizing that power that this diagnosis of cancer brought with it fueled my fight of fights, because I wanted to rise even higher, to take back my own power from it, right?
Right.
And fuel my mind and fuel my body in every way. It made me take accountability, a good look around at what needed to be changed, right, in my day-to-day living style. And I'd always been this poster child for health and wellness,
Right.
right? But there were things, when I said I also let go at that time, and let go and wept about, allowed myself the space to grieve all that cancer had brought with it. It wasn't just that. It was also allowing myself finally the space to grieve, traumas, and not even like big traumas that had happened, but these little things that, we all go through breakups that are hard. We all go through these little life moments, right? And we kind of mask how hard some of those things are, or as children, right? And we develop these survival mechanisms because perhaps experiencing those emotions is too painful, right? So for me, identifying those emotional avoidance strategies and identifying the survival mechanisms that I used to adopt those in my previous life, right, of always being go, 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 and realizing the root of that helped me in these awakenings to stop those same patterns, right, moving forward. And I think this is really where the healing came from.
So you I'm just trying to again, that's so powerful. I just wanted to double click even further on that one. So basically, you first, in a way, maybe this happened unconsciously. Again, I'm trying to kind of, use this kind of male brain here, but you first, you let go, you quote unquote, you went through the experience and quote unquote neutralized it, if you will, at some point, some shape or form, and then it's like, okay, what can I do with this experience? Like first, you come in terms, with the whole idea, like I now have XYZ, now what to do with it. So first, kind of like a little bit staying as present as powerfully as you can, and then using it, then looking at forward. Because I think if you don't do that, if you just try to kind of quote unquote forget that and not to deal with it, it's very hard to use that experience as your fuel going forward, or as a power.
100%. And so some tools that I would use, like, and I even do this with my coaching clients now, right? Create a playlist of music. Music
Mm,
is so powerful on our journey, because even though I had 60 people come to see me every day, like I still felt so alone, right?
mhm,
Because they all got to leave at the end of the day. They got to go to work. They got to go have a family dinner. They got to go have a beach picnic with whoever they wanted to. And I was the one left in there all alone. And you can still feel so alone. So this notion of connecting with our pain, we can do through music, because we all hear our stories
mhm,
in the music of others. And so let's say
mhm,
a lot of music is about, songs are about breakups, right? But let's say Kelly Clarkson's "What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger" is all about a breakup that she went through. But I would sing that out passionately, loudly to my cancer, right?
mhm,
And express my hurt through that playlist that connected me with my pain. But then I would have another playlist of empowered music to then shift and get into my fight zone, if that makes sense,
mhm,
right?
100%.
Um, and it's still a strategy that I do now on hard days, right? Because we're always facing things. And so
Yeah.
using music to really express and experience my emotions, or exercise is another great one, right? Nature is another great one. Just getting lost in the trees. I can go to church out
Mhm,
there, right? But whatever form of tools we use to express that, we also then need to use those tools to shift that to a more positive outlook on, and more driven, more focused, more performance based. And so for me, that was also music, an empowered music playlist that I really resonated with.
beautiful. Such a powerful share, and I think we intuitively know that, like, the music makes us feel, it makes us feel a certain way, and we use different musics. But once you become, a keyword here, intentional about the
Yeah.
use of music, I think that's where the game changes, and you're understanding, like, I'm able to grieve, I'm able to go through these emotions better with the music, uh, whichever type of music you want to use. And the, your examples were powerful, but that intention behind your actions, or behind the sort of the why you do the things the way you do, I think is very, very powerful. So um fantastic. So let's go a little bit into this. I mean, basically anything and everything that we've talked about so far, it speaks volumes about your ability to have resilience, and how you show up in the world. It's nothing short of a extremely powerful showcase of life force energy in our world, and what we are capable of. What else you would describe, or talk about, or what comes to your mind when you hear this kind of, unfortunately right now, the buzzword of resilience, yet it is extremely, extremely needed, because a lot of people are going through a lot of things, maybe not always um, medical hardships, but maybe, as you mentioned, relationships, or losing jobs, or losing loved ones. And so what would be the other sort of ideas of how you could build resilience in the personal matters?
Yes, I'm happy to open up the conversation on this. And, I'm often told on my path, oh gosh, when I'm speaking with others who are going through hardships, well, I've never been through anything that you've been through, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we're all independently going through. That
Mhm.
commonality of pain connects us all, right? And it's like that common foundation. But struggle only comes when we feel as though we don't have any power in our situation. right, in our circumstance. And that's what I'm always trying to help people be filled with, is in their tools of resilience, is how they can take back that power in even small ways, right? And small ways that have such big effect and big change. And so for me, I've always had this fierce passion for life and this fierce dedication to get to be here to be mom. And my personal power statement is one that it's like an affirmation, right? But for me, this personal power statement, it's much more personal. It's very much rooted in my own North Star, right? And so I'll take it back and say how this evolved. But my personal power statement is something that's always kept me, fueled me with strength every time I felt I lacked enough strength to stay the course for another day, hour, or minute ahead, because I assure you, there were many, many of those moments. And when I was first diagnosed with cancer, I didn't know how to say this big word to my kids, because I knew I would crumble. They wouldn't have meaning of it. And so I basically said that mommy doesn't have fighters to fight colds and bugs, and I need to go to the hospital to get these fighters stronger. And my oldest, in his little exuberant ways, as he always is, this bundle of sunshine, makes any room a brighter and happier space, did on this very moment. And he said, shouted out as I was leaving for the hospital, "Go fighters, go mama." And instantly, Tuomo, this just shifted the energy in such a powerful way. This tiny, short, concise sentence, "Go fighters, go mama," so full of so much promise, hope, positivity, and action, right? In this tiny little personal power statement that I now call, instantly became my mantra, or this personal power statement that I would come to repeat over and over in my mind, sometimes screaming it out in my mind, until it fueled me again with that strength to stay the course. Always kept me honed in right there on my North Star, on that golden pod at the end of the rainbow, right? On everything, on all my goals that I was shooting to succeed towards. And so that is what fueled me with strength. And so it's much like, we think about company logos. Companies spend endless money, funds on developing the best brand and the best logo. And this tagline keeps them focused on their North Star and what stands out from the crowd. Just like our personal power statement, we should all have a personal power statement. And still today, it still hones me in and reminds me how lucky I am to get to be alive. Let's say a small example of kids arguing, right? Can drive any parents to go a little sideways sometimes, right? But gosh, I'm instantly, it's so in tune through awareness and mindfulness to repeat my personal power statement. And instantly it reminds me, gosh, I'm just so lucky to be alive, to get to be here to help them navigate through this situation. So adopting a personal power statement, I'm a huge believer in. The power of visualizations, right? See and feel your success. Don't just see what you want to achieve. Really connect with that feeling of what that means. And so another example, when I had this 2-month terminal prognosis, I was on the floor in my huge 5,500 square foot house office, and I have photos displayed all around as I'm making memory albums, right? Multitasking, 2 months to live. When my kids were asleep, this is what I'd be doing, making memory albums. And then I had a self-book in this hand. And the self-help book was written by Dr. Bernie Siegel, and he was all about the power of visualizations. And I really connected with this visualization he was discussing about picturing myself on my graduation stage of health. My cap and gown is on, my entire family and friends, all my nearest and dearest, they're in the audience cheering me on. And I sunk into it, Chomal, and this feeling of pride and achievement for making it to the other side, for making it back to this healthy state, right? And I really sunk into that, and I loved that powerful visualization. And on the other hand, I was holding 2 photos. One as I was serving my valedictorian address from chiropractic school graduation, and one as I was walking across the stage of the University of British Columbia, receiving my degree in exercise science and the bachelor's of human kinetics. And, such a powerful moment, right? And that too was just a shining force. I think we all need to be open to these forces, perhaps that we don't understand at the time, but such a sign that I believe that it was a sign that I would be successful despite all that I was facing at that time. And that also was a fierce message of hope. So personal power statement, visualizations, being of service and contribution, even in our own hardships, super, super, super important, right? Because a lot of times caregivers are there as a role, and we lose our sense of purpose in the world. So for me, I had to get out of that hospital each and every day really, no matter how I was feeling, I would try to go pick up my kids from school, make a family meal, tuck them into bed, and then I would race back to get hooked up. At the end of the day, I'm sure a million people could have done that for me, but I needed to be the one to keep that fierce sense of purpose in this great world, right? And taking accountability, always being the filter of what goes in our mind, our souls, and our bodies. And so fueling our minds and our souls and our bodies, really being accountable for, you know, inspirational, what's going in our mind. And so seeking out inspirational role models, inspirational podcasts, these are all super, super important. And not looking at so much what is wrong, but what are the traits that we ourselves have gone through that have helped us overcome adversity before, right? And what are traits that others in our situation that we're fighting have used to overcome adversity, and model those traits, right? So those are some of the powerful tools that that have really helped serve me.
Beautiful. That was extremely powerful, as everybody can hear and feel that. We're starting to round up towards the end of our time here. First of all, I'm just gonna pull out one question from here that comes from Jakub Janinski. I'm just gonna put it here for you. So you must be very honest with yourself in terms of present and loneliness at the same time. Can you speak into that honesty and truthfulness and the ability to look at your own situation with as clear and honest and truthful look as you can?
Yes, 100%. And yes, so right. I definitely felt this sense of profound loneliness, even though I was enveloped by worldwide forces of love and support on my journey. I was never alone, but I still felt so alone at the same time. And throughout the day, this is kind of before my transformation early on in that hospital, when I felt this need to maintain this upbeat attitude, right? I would. And people came in and they were like, gosh, you're the most positive person. It's almost great that this is happening to you. There's almost this pressure to always be positive, right? But I assure you, at night, Tuomo, when all of those people would leave, those four white walls of my hospital room, they would start to talk, and they would witness those silent tears that I would weep all night long in fear, right? But then come the morning light again, I would wipe them away and put on my best face. And so this was a really big transformation of feeling that depth of solitude and going through that. But, you know, I've also come to learn so much that this solitude that I could never experience before is that time that I need to reflect and to personally grow. And so I really have come to own that and value that and realize that that's what I was really missing in my previous life, as I've come to call it, was this ability to be comfortable with me, myself, and I. And it's the biggest gift that I bestowed from this journey, is this calm in my heart and this love of solitude now that I'm still fueled by my interactions, don't get me wrong, but this love of solitude and this need to carve out this time for solitude to reflect and still experience continued personal growth. So very important. So I've had a lot of shifts on that journey as well.
Yeah,
but it's exactly why I serve in the capacity that I now do, because I did feel so alone. And so that is exactly why I try to create the platform that I'm creating, by sharing these stories of hardship and really opening up that conversation of hardship, right? So that others can be real and they don't feel such a sense of judgment on themselves, the self-judgment for their own emotions and their negativity that they're going through, because we all do, right? And adopting more self-compassion and then these tools to stay the course and to shift those mindset to a more positive and upbeat approach. Yes.
I love it. I love it. That's a super powerful, and that's something. It's so timely right now, because I'm a big healthy fan of solitude in right amounts. I've always, spent a lot of time by myself, and I'm very comfortable with myself and by myself. Maybe sometimes a bit too much, so I kind of have to get myself out there and be active and engaging. But and as you mentioned there in the very beginning, that you mentioned about the stillness and the quiet space during those hardships, it's very, very difficult. I mean, I cannot imagine how difficult that might be, to be able to hear those lessons and learnings and growth opportunities within, when you're going through, when you're in the fight or fights, as you say, like to be able to to find those spaces and solitudes and actually listen to yourself and listen to your body and listen to what your body is telling you, it's a skill. It takes resilience, it takes courage, it takes, you know, probably every single bit out of you to be able to do that. So that's extremely powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
In my previous life, I was always around people, but I always felt alone. Through these awakenings, I'm now divorced. I'm a single mom, right? And through these awakenings, I'm alone technically, right? But I don't feel alone. And it's a beautiful gift. That solitude.
Yeah. That's actually something that my mother told me, that I might be alone, but I'm not lonely.
Yes, it's powerful when you really connect those dots within. It's a powerful force.
100%. 100%. Beautiful. Thank you so much already for this time. So let's come into the present moment now, for last question. So you mentioned what are you doing a little bit right now. Tell us a little bit more, from present and forwards. What's happening in your life right now? Your level of service, and what are you up in the world, and what is the best way for people to find you and your work?
Sure. I passionately serve as a speaker. I speak on resilience and empowerment. I have offered a TED Talk. It's called Own Every Second. I am the founder of risetoday.com and the Rise Today Inspirational Podcast. I coach others navigating through hard days and just those wanting more out of life, right? And wanting to own every second. So passionately here to help others cope with stresses and to rise to adversity and to bounce back and to rebound higher than ever before on the rebound. And yes, risetoday.com, motivation@risetoday.com is my email. Really happy to serve. I'm writing a book currently too about my story and all of these tools that I talk so passionately about. I'm working with a New York publishing firm, and that should be out sooner than later. Yes.
Beautiful. So what you mentioned your website, anything in social spaces that you hang out, probably Instagram where you are, is that where people can find you socially and where you're most active?
Sure. Instagram, Dr. Erica Harris. I'm on Facebook at Rise Today and Erica Harris. Yep. And LinkedIn at Dr. Erica Harris. Yep.
Beautiful. All right, I will link those into the comments here just after our live, and also to the show notes of the podcast that we're gonna be producing after a few moments and days after this interview. But thank you so much, Erica. Thank you so much for your precious time. It's been an absolute honor to have you. Such an inspiration and extremely powerful story. So whoever listened to, please do yourself a favor. First of all, use this information, use these ideas and the motivation, and use it for something in your own life. Put these tools and ideas and practices in place, because information is information, and it only becomes a powerful force for change when you apply it into your own life. So Erica gave us many tools, many ideas, from personal power statements to visualizations and many others. So I'm highly thankful and grateful for your time today, Erica. Any few quick departing thoughts or ideas that you might have?
Really honored to be here. Thank you. And just make today count, my friends. We are all gifted this precious gift of today. Make it count.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.